The heart monitor went from calm little beeps to a furious rhythm right before she touched it. A woman in a powder blue visor, someone who had no business being there, reached over my son's hospital cart, flicked a switch and said, "We're pausing this until he pays his lawn fine." The surgeon froze, the nurse gasped, and I swear my entire world tilted on its axis. That's when the doctor said the words, "I'll never forget, ma'am, step away from the equipment," and enjoy explaining that to the police. My name's Nolan Pierce, and I live in a quiet little suburban hell called Cedarbrook Landing. Every house looks the same, every mailbox beige, every lawn regulation perfect, and every homeowner lives under the watchful, unblinking eye of our HOA president, Loretta Pike. She's the kind of woman who thinks her clipboard gives her divine authority, mid-50s perfect hair, and the tone of someone who's never been told no in her life. I never wanted trouble. I'm a single dad, an accountant I keep to myself. My life revolved around my son Evan, who's 8, bright, funny, and a little too brave for his age. It started small. Evan had been sick for weeks, low appetite fever, and when we finally got a diagnosis, it hit like a freight train appendicitis. We were scheduled for surgery that Saturday morning, and to lift his spirits, my sister made a little blue sign that said, "Keep Evan strong." We stuck it in the yard. Simple, harmless, sweet. 2 hours later, Loretta taped a violation notice to my door. Unapproved messaging. Section 12, subsection 4, paragraph 9. She even drew a smiley face next to the fine amount like it was some kind of game. I tried to laugh it off, but it didn't stop there. She cited me again for leaving a small cooler on the porch, medical clutter she called it, even though it was just popsicles for Evan's sore throat. Then she photographed my nurse's car for parking nose in instead of parallel to community harmony. I didn't even know that was a rule. I told myself to let it go. Evan needed peace, not me losing my mind over HOA nonsense. But Loretta treated patience like weakness. She started circling my property like a hawk, snapping photos of my trash can lids, measuring the distance between my house number digits. It was like she lived for it, for control, for punishment. And then came the morning that broke me. It was 6 a.m. Evan woke up crying, clutching his stomach. The pain was bad, really bad. The doctor said to come immediately. I wrapped him in a blanket, carried him to the car, trying to stay calm, trying not to let him see how scared I was. And then she appeared. Loretta, standing in my driveway, clipboard in hand, golf cart blocking the exit. "Ambulances cannot stage on cul-de-sacs," she said like she was TSA, and my driveway was the airport gate. "That's my car," I said, already sweating. "My son needs the hospital, now." She glanced at the small wooden ramp I'd laid across the curb, something I made to carry Evan more easily. "Unapproved exterior modification," she said, scribbling like she was writing divine law. $200 fine. Must be removed within 24 hours. I could feel the blood rushing to my ears. "Loretta, my son is in pain. Failure to plan ahead," she said, "is not the association's problem." That was it. I almost lost it until my neighbor, Mrs. Duca, stepped out in her robe, cigarette dangling from her mouth. "Loretta," she said in her thick Brooklyn accent, "move your scooter or I'll move you myself. And you won't like my method." Loretta hesitated, then moved her cart just enough for me to squeeze by. But of course she wasn't done. When I checked my rearview mirror, she was following me. In her SUV, hazard lights blinking, clipboard on the dashboard. I could see her mouthing something through the glass. This is not over. By the time we reached the hospital, Evan was pale, shaking. They rushed us in. I signed what felt like 50 papers while he clung to my hand. The nurse was kind, steady, and for the first time that morning, I felt like we might be safe. Until Loretta walked in. She marched up to the admissions desk like she owned the place. "This patient resides in Cedarbrook Landing," she told the clerk, "and is out of compliance with multiple covenant violations. He owes approximately $1,400 in fines." The young man behind the desk blinked at her. "Ma'am, this is a hospital, not a homeowners association meeting." She frowned. "Then you'll need to put his surgery on hold until this is resolved." The nurse tried to defuse her, but Loretta just kept going. She ducked under the authorized personnel only sign and headed straight for the pre-op area. I tried to follow, but security stopped me. "They're prepping your son," a nurse said. "You'll be called back in just a moment." Through the little window in the door, I saw my boy on the bed trembling. Doctors attaching monitors explaining what would happen. And then my heart stopped. Loretta leaned over the equipment. She touched a cable. She said something, and suddenly the monitor alarmed. "Ma'am, step away," I heard the surgeon shout. But Loretta stood her ground. "I am the HOA president," she said. "We're pausing this until he pays his fines." I felt everything inside me collapse. My legs went weak. I thought I might actually throw up. I'd tried so hard to stay calm, to do things by the book, and now this lunatic was literally putting my kid's life in danger because of a sign and a curb ramp. For a moment I questioned everything. Maybe I should have fought her earlier. Maybe if I'd yelled back, filed a complaint, something, anything, this wouldn't be happening. And I hated myself for freezing, for letting her walk all over me, for being so damn afraid of confrontation that now it had come to this. But then Dr. Chen stepped in. She's one of those doctors who doesn't need to raise her voice to own a room. Calm, sharp eyes, steady hands. She reached for the wall phone, pressed a button, and said, "Security to pre-op 3. And someone call PD. We have an unauthorized individual interfering with patient care." Within minutes, 2 hospital security guards arrived, then the police. The air in the room changed. Loretta tried to start with her usual spiel. "I'm here as the HOA president to ensure compliance." The older police officer, a woman with gray hair pulled back tight, cut her off. "I represent handcuffs," she said flatly, "and you're about to get very familiar with them if you don't start explaining why you're in a restricted medical area." Dr. Chen laid out the facts with surgical precision: unauthorized entry, interference with a minor's medical treatment, contamination risk, physical contact with monitoring equipment. She listed it all, calm but deadly serious. I pulled out my phone, still shaking, and showed them my doorbell footage, Loretta blocking our car with her golf cart, measuring my curb, following us with her hazard lights on, saying clear as day, "I'll pause this nonsense at the hospital." It was all right there. Proof that she hadn't just lost her mind in a single moment. This had been planned. Then the hospital risk manager arrived, a tall woman in a gray suit holding a binder the size of a Bible. She flipped to a red tab and said, "Any person touching medical equipment without authorization is guilty of criminal trespass and interference with medical care. In cases involving minors, it's a felony." The officers started asking Loretta questions. Calm, deliberate questions that cut through her arrogance like knives. "Do you have medical training? Were you invited into this room? Do you understand what the word unauthorized means?" Her face went from red to pink to pure panic. "I was protecting community standards," she snapped. That man weaponized sympathy for his son to avoid legitimate fines. The officer looked unimpressed. "So you interfered with surgery to protect property values." Loretta puffed up her chest. "HOA presidents don't need permission to enter areas where residents are present." The officer smirked. "You do today." Click. The sound of handcuffs snapping shut. It was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. Loretta started shouting, "This is a mistake. You'll all regret this," but nobody was listening. The visor that had sat like a crown on her head slipped off and clattered onto the floor. Dr. Chen turned to my son, who was staring wide-eyed, and smiled softly. "Okay, buddy," she said. "Let's do this the right way. No more interruptions." 2 hours later, Evan was in recovery. The surgery went perfectly. He was pale but smiling, asking for the popsicle I'd promised him. I laughed for the first time in days. As for Loretta, she was charged with criminal trespass interference with medical treatment of a minor and reckless endangerment. Felonies. The district attorney said it straight. This isn't an HOA issue. This is a crime. She was banned from the hospital and from coming within 500 feet of our home. Her bail was set at $50,000. When the judge read the number aloud, her face went from red to white to a kind of purple. I didn't know humans could turn. Her lawyer just shook his head, too tired to argue. When they led her out of the courtroom in cuffs, there was no clipboard in her hand, no visor, no power, just a woman who finally met a rule she couldn't control. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post about it or brag to neighbors. I just sat by Evan's bed watching him sleep, listening to the slow, steady rhythm of that heart monitor beep. beep, and feeling something I hadn't in weeks, peace. Because in that moment I realized something simple and sharp and true. Rules only matter when they protect people, not when they destroy them.